Good evening, friends. Welcome you all for this interesting session on antivitrectomy techniques, machine, and everything else about antivitrectomy. And we had the previous episode was about posterior capsular tear. So, as a prelude to this session, we'll start by asking two questions regarding the previous session. It was just as a sort of a continuity. So, let me ask Dr. Shetty these two questions. How do you diagnose or identify PC tear at the earliest? And what is the absolute no-no once a PCR is detected? Shetty sir, you can begin.
Good evening, everyone. I thought, the PC tear can start happening right from doing the capsular axis. So if you are trying to pull a runaway axis, back, the tear instead of coming towards the center may go beyond the equator and to the posterior capsule. We may not be able to diagnose it on the spot at that time, but the sign will appear during the hydrodissection time. During hydrodissection, if there is any posterior polar cataract which you missed, maybe in a mature cataract, there can be a blowout effect because of the hydrodissection. So you may see a sudden deepening of the entry chamber with the sudden disappearance of the nucleus also, or there could be a tilt down of the nucleus. And it can be missed if the cataract is mature, the posterior polar cataract. But in an extended this rhexis, what we talked just now, the extension of the tear to the posterior capsule, the nucleus may tilt down during the hydrodissection by widening this tear, or sometimes if the entry face is intact, the bulge and the gel vitreous is there, hydrodissection time, the nucleus may get lifted up also. So, but hydrodissection itself, causing PC blowout is very, very rare because of in SSCS, because of the wider rhexis and a wide wound. So buildup of fluid in the entry chamber causing in the pushing the nucleus down is unlikely. And as I said, most of us, our endpoint of hydrodissection is to lift the nucleus out of the bag. So the buildup of fluid behind the nucleus is very, very rare. There can be a PC tear during the nucleus delivery. If it is there, then you'll see a clear area seen between the nucleus and the inner lip of the wound. So as the vectis goes under the nucleus, you may see a clear area, which is very scary for somebody who already knows that it is a sign of PC tear. Vitreous is, and there could be a vitreous herniation or even the iris prolapse. Every time you try to put the vectis under the nucleus, if the iris is prolapsing, you watch out for a PC tear. During cortical washup, and particularly when you are doing it from the main port, there is some amount of bulge on the posterior capsule. So there is a sudden clearing of the central pupillary area of all the cortical matter, and the iris gets pushed away, that there will be a dilatation of the pupil. And the dancing what we see in in the intact PC, the iris and the cortex, and when you are doing the IA, will suddenly stop. And if you try to reach the cortex with the IA cannula, the cortex seems to move away from it because there is vitreous in front of that. And when you remove the IA, even without any fluid in the AC remains deep. So it could be one of them. You asked for the early sign, any one of them may present as an early sign. And even we can have a PC tear during implantation of the IOL. And for all, in a pigmented iris like ours, pupil is not fully dilated in most of the time. Or by the time you reach the end of the surgeries, usually it is a semi-dilated pupil. You may not be able to see the haptics where they are. So decentration of the IOL, the optic doesn't seem to center. It is one of the early signs, or tilting of the IOL. Sometimes you may even suddenly see the sinking of the IOL with one haptic caught in the capsule. So any of this can happen during IOL implantation. So these are the early signs for a different level of our SSCS surgery. For this absolute no-nos, so I recommend that do not pull on the capsule when it's run away into the zonular area, and unless you are seeing the tearing point. If it has gone beyond the pupillary margin, either you switch to a Caesar cut and complete the rhexis, or any other method you are comfortable with. Don't pull on the capsule during that time. If the nucleus is still in the eye, meaning in the early stage, do not deepen the anterior chamber with visco. That will further push the nucleus down towards the vitreous. And also, if there is already a sinking nucleus, do not try to retrieve it, which is nucleus sinking, because there is vitreous between the nucleus and your instrument. It will further go down, and also you may catch the vitreous and pull, which is not good, as we know, for the retina. And if you are comfortable with this lollipopping of the nucleus from behind, you can push the nucleus up if we are comfortable with that. And do not do hydrodissection or nuclear rotation in posterior polar cataract. That's what I follow. Hydrodelamination is fine, but hydrodissection I definitely avoid. And in case there is an extension you suspect during the capsular axis of the tear to the posterior capsule, there also I try to avoid the hydrodissection. And you can actually do hydrodelamination or do the way we do for, there is also another thing I sometimes do is to sacrifice the rhexis. If I think that one tear is going all the way, I can do multiple small, cut in the rest of the capsular axis, and diffuse the stretch to all the points so that the tear will not worsen. Because in SSCS, we have to mobilize the nucleus out of the bag. You see, this is a very strenuous procedure when there is already a very PC tear. So when it is seen in the IA stage, irrigation aspiration stage, stop the IA anyway. Do not do IA in the presence of PC tear, definitely. One thing we can do is that if the tear is limited and the vitreous is not all full in the entry chamber, we can isolate the visco with the visco the vitreous, and if the cortex is reachable, we can do this dry aspiration. Dry aspiration has become very handy for me, that we use a cannula, front opening cannula, and we engage the nucleus, cortical matter, and aspirate. It occludes this opening with the cortex, so there's no chance of catching the vitreous, and either you aspirate it, otherwise you pull it out of the eye. So that I find it a very useful technique to remove the cortex, whatever is visible and is retrievable. And of course, in SSCS, we have another issue, that is we have a wide opening of the wound as against in phaco. So our instruments do not fill the wound. You see, there is so much of leak happening from all sides when you pass an instrument in the main port. While doing this cortical aspiration, dry aspiration, avoid the main port and try to remove it from the side port. And I personally do not try to put the IOL in the bag once there is a PC tear, because again, the same issue that what we enjoy in phaco, it is not possible in SSCS, because when the IOL is put through the main port, there is so much of space on either side that the bag we created may not stay the way it is. So it may land up having a flat bag, and into which we are trying to put the lens, which may worsen the tear. What you have successfully achieved it will be lost. So you can easily put in the sulcus, and if possible, capture the optic. These are the points I want to.
Sir, remaining we'll discuss later on, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Ravi, can you start sharing your screen, please? In the meanwhile, he starts sharing. There was a question last time that is vitreous management different when you compare with phaco and SICS?
In May?
Well, the answer is simple. The principles of vitreous management is not going to differ whether you're doing SICS or phaco. So the principles, objectives, and goals are all going to remain the same. So irrespective of whether you're doing phaco or SICS. So that doubt I wanted to clear. The cause for the vitreous loss could be different in both the settings, but the principles of management are going to remain the same. So anti-vitrectomy machine is an integral part of our armamentarium, and Dr. Ravi Kulkarni is going to share his machine which he has and share us some detail with that. Ravi, please go ahead.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Namaste, everybody. Anterior vitrectomy machine. This is my anterior vitrectomy machine. It has a vitrectomy console, foot switch, and compressor. This is one unit, and a tray kept over this contains a sterile vitrectomy probe, autoclaved or ETO'd, balanced salt solution, and drip set. Along with that, we can have a tricort, adrenaline, xylophane, etc. This machine is from Reticare, iNest Medicare Hosur. This is how the machine looks like this from the back side. This is an older model. It is a posterior segment vitrectomy machine, actually 20 gauge. So it has two units. So upper one is vitrectomy, lower one is for injection of air and silicone oil, etc. This is the front side of the machine, which has a suction chamber and the panel in the front. This is very simple. As soon as I say vitrectomy, everything is set. My boys, they take the silicone tube and connect it to the compressor. It's a less than 10-15 second job, and they turn out the knob to get the air inside. Once you switch on, it goes to diathermy, and then you have to press this vitrectomy button there, and then it will go to the vitrectomy. Practical problems are very few with this machine. It's a very simple machine and very highly reproducible. You can do it. I mean, all connections are, if they are intact, it takes hardly 5 to 7 minutes to set the vitrectomy ready. And one by one, if you see connections, what I have done is these connections are fixed. I don't remove it. Once in a week, Saturday or Friday, when they clean it, they just replace it back. And all foot switch connections, compressor, the silicon tube compressor connection, and the power connections, all cables are ready. Just you have to plug and switch it on. This is very simple. And I have taken a photo of this. This is displayed on my wall. I have colored photo and kept it there. Even if somebody has removed it, at that time it is very difficult to recall also sometimes. So I have just kept it photo, and one copy I have kept it along with the vitrectomy machine also. And this suction cup, sometimes it is not, if you have not fitted properly, you will have less suction. And that's why before starting the surgery, I make it sure that it is tightly threaded, and then the connections are made. Every time, whenever I'm starting that, the person will do this. And vitrectomy probe, sometimes it will not work when we start working. That is because of clogging with visco or vitreous. So at the end of each vitrectomy, the surgery, whenever I use it, I clean it myself by dipping the probe into the PSS and pressing it with the vitrectomy on once and vitrectomy off once. And later, the same probe connections are made to the air. It is there in the front panel. I'll show you. Yes, here it is. This air injector system is there. You connect it to that, and the whole water bubbles, whatever are there inside, are evacuated, and it is ready for the sterilization. And this compressor, the practical problem with this compressor is it used to produce a lot of noise. It is producing a lot of noise, and it starts moving inside the OT. That's why I have kept it at one corner, and one mat is there, foot mat, and that we have kept to reduce the noise. Otherwise, it hardly has any problem, and I have not serviced it yet. And price, coming to the price and service, this machine I was lucky to get it from my guru H.M. Ravindranath sir free of cost, but it was a 2008 model, and that time it was costing around 6.5 lakhs to 7 lakhs it seems. But the basic machine what they are offering now, Reticare, is around 1.3 lakh rupees. That has a cut rate of 900. It is sufficient for the anterior vitrectomy, and it comes with a one probe. That offer is there, and you have to connect it to the this is a vitrectomy machine connected to the nitrous oxide cylinder. Last 2019 conference, we took some 3-4, I think, my friends. It was given for 1.3. Along with that, one cylinder we have to buy that costs around 8,000 rupees. So all in all, if you are doing initially 15 surgeries a month, it will cost you per patient about 200 rupees extra. That's it. So what I mean to say is, it is indispensable. You have to buy it. This is a Reticare anterior vitrectomy system. Very simple and very easy to use. It's a very good tool to start your practice. Thank you very much.
Ravi, can you stop your screen
Yes,
share?
Yes,
thank you, Ravi, so much. And now Dr. Mallikarjun Heralgi will present his experience with the anterior vitrectomy machine. He's going to demonstrate what he's saying. I'm just going to play his video. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Deepak, it's visible.
Okay.
Voice is feeble.
Okay, just a second.
मैं उधर लेके जा सकती हूँ.
It gets into vitreous cutters are based on the Galitron principle. When the vitreous gets engaged to the cutter, it gets into small pieces and makes aspiration easy. When you see inside, there is a spring which will be moved with the help of air pulse, and the blade will move to and fro. There are modifications of these cutters also where there is no spring, but there will be air pulse for the forward movement and backward movement of the cutter. This is the front view of the vitrectomy machine. It has a 2 digital display for cutting and aspiration, one now for vitrectomy probe, and other knob is for adjustment of the vacuum and electrical switch. The cost is much lesser than autorefractor. One can easily afford to buy this machine. This is the back side of the vitrector, air inlet, vacuum for foot pedal, and electrical switch wire. And the air comes from the central compressed air outlet in our hospital. And also these machines will come with the small, tiny compressors. This is a small bottle which helps to create vacuum by Venturi pump system. This is the cutter with 2 tubes. One is in blue color, other one is in white color. The blue is for cutter and white end is for vacuum. So one should not confuse when you are setting it. The vacuum outlet is connected to the vacuum bottle with a tube. The other end is connected to the vitrector vacuum tube. The cutter tube is connected to the vitrector console, blue to blue. The right side of the foot switch is for cutting and aspiration. Left side is for only aspiration. Now it is connected to the electricity and switched on, and front panel switch is also on. Now we can adjust the cutting rate. It can go up to 900 cut rates. And we also can adjust the vacuum by pressing on the foot pedal and rotating the knob. In this machine, we can set up to 650 vacuum. To check the cutter, whether it is working or not, put it into a bowl containing BSS. First aspiration, press on the push pedal. You can see the BSS getting aspirated and it is getting collected into the vacuum bottle. To check the cutter, you have to see the tip of the cutter. It will be oscillating to and fro. That means it is cutting correctly. The most common one is when you are priming, the cutter is oscillating, but when you are actually cutting the vitreous, it is not cutting. Probably cutter may be old and it has lost its efficiency, or the cutter sharpness is reduced. The solution is you have to change the cutter. If the probe is connected other way, air bubble will come out. Now everything has been connected. The vacuum is not generating. So you have to recheck again. Probably the tip of the vacuum bottle is loosely capped. So you have to tighten the cap and check again. Now the vacuum is slowly building up. So if you connect the vitrectomy tubes loosely, when you press on the push pedal, it will suddenly comes out.
Thank you, Dr. Mallikarjun. I think there will be some questions. We'll be answering them in the later part of the show. May I request Dr. M.S. Ravindra sir to share his hospital setup of managing the vitreous.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible now. So the voiceover is not there. You can speak, I think.
Okay.
Voiceover is not good.
Okay.
The connector for the compressor pipe that comes whenever there is a need for vitrectomy during a cataract surgery, the compressor in the adjacent room of the operation theatre is put on. Like so. Whenever there is a need for vitrectomy during a cataract surgery, the compressor in the
Whenever there is a need for the vitrectomy, there is a compressor which is in the adjacent room. I'm going into the, I've switched on, my assistant has switched on, I'm going to into my operation theater. What I would like to tell is that, this has been explained. This is the Opticon's Antares machine, which is complete phaco on the top and complete vitrectomy. This is probably the first machine which came up with the features of both phaco and vitrectomy. I've used this a lot. Now we have other phaco machines and other vitrectomy. This machine, I've specifically kept it for only the complications when I cast. So when you look at the front panel, this is the vacuum. That's the cutting rate. Cutting rate, its maximum cut rate is 200 into 10. That's 2000. 2000 cut rate it works. And you can set the vacuum either on linear vacuum mode, which you control the vacuum by pressing your foot switch. I keep maximum as 200 here. It can go up to 500. Then vitrectomy, and there are two vitrectomy ports. This is for vitrectomy. That's for intraocular scissors in case you want to use it. And that is the collection bottle. And you go to the vitrectomy, Then you select the module, then linear vacuum. And as you were told, that is the Tyvek pouch in which I would like to say a few words about it. This is a mid-lab vitrectomy probe. The advantage of this is every center will not have native sterilizer, so it can be autoclaved. This is silicon tubes, and the contents of the probe itself can be autoclaved. So you can actually autoclave this and keep it ready in a Tyvek pouch. Once you autoclave in Tyvek pouch and keep it, you can keep it stored for a month's time. So this is a trial. There's no surgery going on. I just wanted to show a demo of how it is done. He peels it open, and the scrub nurse will take it and puts it there. And the probe has to be protected by a tube, otherwise it will get bent. Once it gets bent, it doesn't work as efficiently. The cutter will go into that. As Dr. Mallikarjun said, the cutter connection has to be, there's a Luer law connection, it has to be very tight. And that's for the vacuum. So how do you identify? The cutter always goes to there are two connectors to the probe. Cutter is in the center. The peripheral outlet on the probe is for the vacuum. This is autoclavable vacuum collector. This is made of polycarbonate. That's a lid there. You can discard, or you can collect the specimen in case you're collecting the culture and sensitivity. And then the entire thing can be autoclaved. And that is always kept covered with silicon tube, which is open on the other end. As you can see, that's a probe. That's a vitrectomy by mid-lab. And we write A, B, C on it, depending upon the end of surgery. If it's a good cutter still, we're going to reuse it. We can use it for 4 to 5 vitrectomy. If you have used it to chop the lens, then its life is much lesser. But if you are using it only to cut the vitreous, then its life will be short. So how do we, the fluid has to fill the tube before you put it to the eye. So she has the bulb in the hand, which is filled by BSS. This is all unsterile, actually. Don't mistake it that, no, it's a surgery going on. So she compresses the foot switch and dips it in the fluid and see that the entire pipe is filled by water. This is very important. Otherwise, suddenly the vacuoles of air can create unnecessary excess or low pressure. So this is filled by fluid before she hands it over. That also tests whether the cutter and tube is working. See, this is on linear mode, so I can actually watch the eye and control the amount of vacuum by foot switch. So I'll show you the foot switch. Foot switch, when you press it down, it's vacuum. When I slide it to my right side, it is cutting. So that is cutting and pressing it vacuum. If you want to cut and suck the vitreous, then you'll have to go down and turn to swivel the foot to the right side. So initially, when you go inside, my policy is that I do not start the infusion. I'll show you how I do the infusion. You can have a line running, then it will be uncontrolled infusion. But I would like to actually control the infusion, cutting and vacuum, all the three of it, and taking the feedback from what happens under the microscope. So it's a very delicate control, cutting there, pressing it, vacuuming. So the amount of pressure you apply on the foot switch, the vacuum is also enhanced or decreased depending upon that. So now at that point, she gives it to me, and the bulb is mounted to a cannula. So I'm going to hold the cannula in my left hand, which is mounted in the bulb, which has got BSS, and I'm infusing, I'll imagine that's the eye, I'm infusing fluid into the eye myself, and the amount is controlled, and cutting and aspiration with this. So you have all the three things happening simultaneously. So at the end of surgery, the moment I give it to her, she will not keep it down. She'll activate the foot switch, or she'll ask me to activate the foot switch, and we suck the fluid on the table itself. Instead of waiting till the end of the surgery and going it, the tube can get clogged with material. So she's going to clear it up by vacuuming it from the bowl. And that's the end of surgery. We fill it up with distilled water, which is from a distilled water plant, and suck at least about 30, 40, 50 ml of distilled water through this. The surgery is over. And their settings are highest vacuum and low cut rate. So remember that if you want to have a long life of the vitrectomy cutter, you should not cut it in air. The moment you start cutting it in air, and the blade becomes, blunt. So always, whenever you want to cut it, dip it in water. And now after distilled water, there is a sterile distilled water. We'll again suck the entire thing. And there'll be vacuoles of water inside the tube. So how do you get rid of the vacuoles of water? I use alcohol, absolute alcohol.